Hello, one, two.
Hello, hello, hello. What's up, everybody? How we doing? How we feeling? Okay, okay. I sense a little excitement. How are we feeling, everyone? Okay. Here we are on a beautiful July day. You know, even the rain, it's still beautiful, right? So we're very, very excited to bring to you the last in the series of classes in Hip Hop Lives, everyone. So make a round of applause for this class series, for the work. We're very grateful once again to be at the People's Forum, you know, an amazing hub for community organizing, a place that's a home for so many people's movements. You can get more information at the front desk or by asking one of the people who works here. We're very happy to be using this space because of how beautiful it is. And, you know, just that connection is incredibly important. So my name is Cameron. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I have been for 6 years. And I have to say I'm incredibly proud once again to launch the initiative that we have that is not just one event, not just a class series, but is multiple different ways of engaging with hip hop, its history, its culture, and the music as well. So how many of you came to the first class? Anyone? How many of you came to the second class? Okay, well, even if you didn't, you can catch both of them on the People's Forum YouTube. So they're very important for setting the foundations. You can go back and study. The first one was taught by Claudia de la Cruz, and it was about the working class roots of hip hop. Next, we had Eugene Puryear talk to us about the relationship between hip hop and the people's movements, because that's what we're here to build, is a people's movement. And we believe that culture, not only the understanding of culture, but the participation in culture, the uplifting of revolutionary culture is essential for us to ever win a revolution in this country. And we believe that must happen and that it will happen and that only the people can make that happen. Is that something we can agree with? Okay, okay. So two organizations have put, you know, quite a lot of work into making this happen. I want to first introduce the Justice Center and El Barrio, which is a dynamic space for community organizing, for building people's power. And you can check them out at an upcoming event that I'll say a little bit more about later. Also, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is a national organization dedicated to building revolution, dedicated to community organizing, and saying that the working class needs an independent political power that's not tied to either the two corporate parties or, you know, any of their, you know, stooges on Wall Street. We have to build something that's separate, something that is for the people, by the people, and dedicated to transforming this society. Because our last two classes really laid out that this society is one deeply in need of change. Anyone who's paying attention to the news, who's just walking down the streets of New York, it's obvious that this change is needed. You know, we just saw the historic agreement that is tentative from the Teamsters, for example. Worker power was necessary for that to come through. We've definitely been following that very closely, but the PSL is involved in all types of struggles from, you know, the struggle against police terror, the struggle for union power, the struggle for the rights of LGBTQ people, reproductive rights, all of these different things, because we need it all combined to actually win. Is that right? Okay. So with that said, we're about to go into the third class, the future of the culture. It is the last in a series of 3, but it's not the last hip hop event that we're going to be holding this summer. We still have a couple more coming up. We're going to have our final hip hop walking tour in the Bronx, and that's going to be August 5th at 1 p.m. at East 149th Street and Grand Concourse. Once again, that's East 149th and Grand Concourse. We're very excited. It's a hip hop history walking tour. You know, you can meet people, you can talk, you can, you know, digest everything that you're going to learn today. So we really hope to see you there. You can get more information on this flyer. But also importantly, we're going to have on August 12th at 12 p.m. the big 50th anniversary celebration. And remember, ours is going to be rooted in that working class history, the working class revolutionary spirit of the people. There's many hip hop events across the city, but you're going to want to be at this one, August 12th, 12 p.m. And that's going to be at El Maestro in the Bronx. So I'll see you all there. Everyone excited? Okay, okay. So there's one more event that I want to plug. And once again, all these flyers are on the back table. Please be sure to check that out when you get time. There is a lot of merchandise, books that can, you know, give you something to study in between classes and more information. So Noche Cubana. Anyone heard of Noche Cubana? Okay, so it is basically going to be an amazing night with fun, music, prizes. It's going to be a solidarity fundraiser for the type of Cuba solidarity organizing that we do. We're very excited to be holding that at the People's Church, 163 East 111th Street here in New York. And that's going to be July 29th. Doors open at 7 p.m. We have a suggested donation of $10, but we're very excited to have each and every one of you there. It's going to be an amazing event. So that's July 29th. We got many things on our calendar, but that's because we're such an active organization that is trying to reach all corners of society, all people from all backgrounds that make up the working class. So without further ado, it's a lot of introduction, right? But one more person who needs no introduction, but I'll still give some. We have Kathy Rojas, who we already know what's up. So Kathy is a Queens native, family hailing from Colombia. We have a people's educator, a public school teacher, a longtime, lifelong community organizer, and, also someone who's about to talk to us about hip hop and the future of the culture. Also the 2021 New York mayoral candidate, socialist candidate for the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the people's mayor, Kathy Rojas.
I think I'm good with this. Hello? Hello? Is it working? Yeah? Okay. Thank you all so much for coming. This event is these 3 events. The event that's going to happen on August 10th, this kind of commemoration of hip hop, is so very special to me. As was said, I'm a native New Yorker from Queens, New York. I grew up listening to hip hop. Today, I came wearing my Immortal Technique shirt because I've been a long-time political activist, but I was actually politicized through hip-hop. When I was in high school, Revolutionary Part 3 came out, and I became obsessed with Immortal Technique and listening to all his lyrics and literally Googling. At that time, you had the big computers. You only had one at home or in the library, and I would literally try to find the computer to Google his lyrics to see if what he was saying was true and find out more about the war on drugs in Latin America. And it opened my eyes to so many things. And it really formed me as a socialist, as a political activist, and hip hop did that for me. And I hope that this class, when we're talking about the future of hip hop and our duty to hip hop, we come out of here really seeing what hip hop could do for the rest of youth today, and how many of them hip hop could also inspire to become activists and join the movement. So let's get started. We're going to be watching this video, The Bigger Picture by Lil Baby. As I said, this workshop is really about the current state of hip hop right now and the future. So we're gonna be talking a little bit about how protest hip hop looks like today, its shortcomings, and what's our responsibility to it. So let's watch this music video. If you haven't watched it, I hope a lot of you haven't watched it. I think it's really good. Let's just watch it and then we'll talk it through. This is gonna be interactive, so you all will be talking to each other, with me, you'll be popcorning. So, feel free to get comfortable and, get comfortable with the people around you. Oh, I have the thing. I have the power here. Hold on. Oh, what do I do, David? You got it? Okay, he has the power.
Protest and growing national outcries continue over the death of George Floyd.
Last night, people protesting in Minneapolis escalated as demonstrators were lashed by tear gas and rubber bullets.
The main message here
is
that they want to see those officers involved.
They want to see those officers arrested.
Trade my 4x4 for a GC3, ain't no more free little Steve. I gave him chance again, I even told him please. I find it crazy the police will shoot you and know that you dead but still tell you to freeze. Fucked up, I seen what I seen. I guess that mean hold him down if he say he can't breathe. It's too many mothers just grieving, they killing us for no reason. Been going on for too long to get even. Throw us in cages like dogs and hyenas. I went to court and they sent me to prison. My mama was crushed when they said I can't leave. First I was drunk, then I sobered up quick when I heard all that time that they gave to Talib. He got a life sentence plus. We just some products of our environment. How the fuck they gon' blame us? You can't fight fire with fire, I know, but at least we can turn off the flames some. Every color person ain't dumb, and all whites not racist. I be judging by the mind and heart, I ain't really in the faces. Fuck up the way that we living is not getting better, you gotta know how to survive. Crazy, I had to tell all of my loved ones to carry a gun when they going outside. Stay in the mirror whenever you drive, overprotective, go crazy for mine. You gotta pay attention to the sign, seem like the blind following the blind. Thinking about everything that's going on, I boost security up in my home. I'm with my kind of, they right or they wrong. I call them now, he'll pick up the phone and it's 5 in the morning, he waking up on it. Tell them wherever I'm at, then they coming. I see blue lights, I get scared and start running. That shit be crazy, they supposed to protect us. Swords and handcuffs and arrest us. Why they go home at night, that shit messed up. Knowing we needed help, they neglect us. One of them who gon' make them respect us. I can see in your eye that you fed up. Fuck around, got my shot, I won't let up. They know that we a problem together. They know that we can storm anywhere. It's bigger than black and white. It's a problem with the whole way of life. It can't change overnight, but we gotta start somewhere. Might as well go ahead, start here. We done had a hell of a year. I'ma make it count while I'm here. God is the only man I fear. Fuck it, I'm going on the front line. He gon' bust your ass if you come past that gun line. You know when the storm go away, then the sunshine. You gotta put your head in the game when it's crunch time. I want all my sons to grow up to be monsters. I want all my daughters to show out in public. Seem like we losing our country, but we gotta stand up for something, so this what it comes to. Every video I see on my conscience, I got power now, I gotta say something. Corrupted police been the problem where I'm from, but I'd be lying if I said it was all of them. I ain't do this for the trend, I don't follow them. Altercations with the law had a lot of them. People speaking for the people, I'm proud of them. Stick together, we can get it up out of them. I can't lie like I don't rap about killing and dope, but I'm telling my youngest to vote. I did what I did cause I didn't have no choice and no hope. I was forced to just jump in and go. This bullshit is all that we know, but it's time for a change. Got time to be serious, no time for no games. Ain't taking no more, let us go for them chains. God bless they soul, every one of them names. It's bigger than black and white. It's a problem with the whole way of life. It can't change overnight, but we gotta start somewhere. Might as well go ahead, start here. We done had a hell of a year. I'ma make it count while I'm here. God is the only man I fear. They training officers, the killers, then shooting protesters with these rubber bullets. They regular people, I know that they feel us. These scars too deep, they heal us. What happened to COVID? Nobody remember, it ain't making sense. I'm just here to vent. It happened to one of your people, it's different. We get it, the system is wicked, just learn how to pick it. Knowledge is power, I swear I'm a witness. I know that I'm gifted, I won't go too deep, cause I'm scared they'll get me. Ain't scared to admit it, some shit I can't mention. It's people who can, well here's the chance. I won't take the stand, but I'll take a stand for what I believe. Must not be breathing the air that I breathe. You know that the way that I bleed, you can breathe. I never been a fan of police, but my neighborhood know I try to keep peace, so it's only right that I get in the streets. March for a reason, I just on GP. How people die for us to be free. Fuck do you mean? This was a dream. Now we got the power that we need to have. They don't want us with it, and that's why they mad. It's bigger than black and white. It's a problem with the whole way of life. It can't change overnight, but we gotta start somewhere. Might as well go ahead, start here. We done had a hell of a year. I'ma make it count while I'm here. God is the only man I fear. It's bigger than black and white. It's a problem with the whole way of life. It can't change overnight, but we gotta start somewhere. Might as well go ahead, start here. We done had a hell of a year. I'ma make it count while I'm here. God is the only man I fear.
All right. How many of you had seen the music video before? Just a few. 1, 2. Okay, cool. So what are some things that stood out to you? Things that you saw that you maybe didn't expect to see in this music video, whether it's contradictions or something that just stood out to you that while you were watching it? Anyone? What can we tell, like, specifically about, like, the country's social political climate by looking at this video? Like, if, let's say, 40 years from now, somebody is trying to figure out what was happening in United States at this time, and they bring up this music video, what can we tell? What's happening in society? Oh, everybody's shy.
Like the George Floyd COVID era.
Okay.
Or the death of George Floyd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we see a huge eruption of protests happening all over the country. And what happens is that hip hop is really, not working, David. Oh, there we go. Okay, so hip hop is really a mirror of society's problems, right? So in last class, Eugene said something that he said that, for many years, hip hop was known as the CNN of Black America, right? Hip hop is the voice of the oppressed. Hip hop will talk about whatever society is experiencing, experiencing, all the social problems that society is experiencing. Hip hop is a mirror of the experiences of the oppressed. So in May 25th, 2020, George Floyd is killed by police officer Derek Chauvin. Protests erupt in over 140 cities all throughout the United States. Protests also erupt demanding justice for Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. Protests are met with heavy repression, but also the magnitude of the protests that we were experiencing was huge, right? I had been in the movement I've been in the movement for a little over a decade now, and I had not seen the level of dedication, the amount of people that were outside, the amount of risk people were willing to take out in the streets, as I saw in 2020. Right? We can say that the magnitude of these protests were huge. Right? I mean, we see here a police precinct that was burnt. Right? That was lit on fire, and protesters are met with heavy repression by police. Close to 15,000 protesters are arrested nationwide. And this is all while everybody is in lockdown because of the pandemic. This is when Black and Latinos are dying because of COVID-19 disproportionately more than any other group of people because of systematic racism, right? Because we have people that can't afford rent. Our communities can't afford rent because they don't have access to proper to high-paying jobs, to accessible housing. So then they're doubling up on homes. They don't have enough hospitals in their communities where they can go to. So then they're going to hospitals that are overfilled with people that are going there because of COVID. And we see our community literally dying, right? Whether they're dying of hunger or whether they're literally, I was living in Elmer's, borderline Corona at the time when this was happening, which was one of the communities that was hardest hit by the pandemic. And I still remember going outside and seeing ambulance, taking people out of their homes, and you not knowing whether these people are going to become the people in the truck with the body bags of people that just passed away because of COVID, right? So we were going through an extreme repression at that time. We were seeing the extreme poverty, lack of resources, and this all showed in hip hop. David, sorry, I don't know, this doesn't work. So in this book that I recommend that everybody reads, it's called "It's Bigger Than Hip Hop" by M.K. Asante. He has, in one of his chapters, he has a phone interview with hip hop, and hip hop states, they ask hip hop, what are you? Who are you? And hip hop responds, "I am the latest weapon in a long line of weapons that have been created out of necessity to uplift and aid them in their struggle for liberation." And that is who hip hop is in its roots, right? David? So in 2020, right, we begin to see this extreme repression. But wherever there's extreme repression, there's extreme resistance, right? And that shows up in hip hop. So we see, oh, don't play. No, we don't need to. No. Stop. Okay, go. All right. We see we see different rappers that are making we see an influx and a rise of music and hip hop songs that are centered around protests, right? Or kind of F the government, F the police type of discourse. So we have FTP by YG that comes out in 2020. Next. You don't have to play it. No. Mm-mm. We have The Other Side of America by Meek Mill, and we'll actually play that a little later. We have Different Toilet by Styles P and Marco Polo. We have Front Lines by Conway the Machine that comes out in 2020. We have Mr. Officer by T Grizzly, which is really it's really a great song. Because it really encompasses the whole community. He uses the Detroit Youth Choir within the song. Yeah, you could go next. The intro of Tiana Taylor Still, so it's only the intro. But you'll see that she makes reference to the Black Panther Party. So you could actually play that, and I'll just let you know when to stop.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
Just the thought of you, just the thought of you makes me weak in my knees.
So she has the names of different people that have been murdered by police.
No matter what you do, I still believe. Still believe, way more to see, more to us.
All right, and you could stop it, and we could go next. And then this one is really great because here we see where I don't know if you guys saw this, but this was a Black woman that was being stopped and arrested wrongfully by a police officer. And she's filming this, and instead of her feeling kind of like she's being like oppressed or scared, she literally threatens the police officer, and she's like, "You're about to lose your job." And they got this on film, and then a DJ, which basically made a remix to this, that not only kind of like made this an empowering moment, but it became one of the biggest chants of the movement in 2020. So you could play it a little bit for people that haven't heard it. So I don't know, for those of you that were out in protesting, do you guys remember using this chant? So yeah, it was really funny. All right, we can stop it. Yeah, so it's really like a moment where we're seeing like this heavy repression that is like literally flipped by hip hop, and now it's used. We're using this moment as a moment of as kind of like a verse of empowerment for our people, a verse of like, we are powerful. You may think you have the power, but you do not have the power. It's reclaiming the power of the people. Next. So then we kind of see, as we said, movement shapes hip hop, right? Then we see Biden take office in 2021, and we do see a decline in kind of like these songs that were being made focused on the movement, on social movements, of joining the movements. That does not mean, though, that that hip hop itself is not reporting on issues that are important and the social problems that our communities are going through. You can go next. So we see how hip hop, how many youth begin to use hip hop to basically just share what's happening in their communities, right? And what they share many times can be seen as very violent. Why? Because the conditions in which they grew up are very violent. They do not create the conditions in their community. They only report on them, right? So, and then we begin to see the demonization of youth and youth culture and hip hop and drill music, right? So we see this with Eric Adams, right? Where he actually said that he wanted to ban drill music, where if I would have been mayor, I would have never said something like that. But whatever. He said that he wanted to completely ban drill music. And he said, we put Trump off Twitter, yet we are allowing music displaying of guns and violence, right? So it's like we have music that displays guns and violence that leaves you, oh my God, so shocked and offended. But the actual violence that happens in these communities, well, that's okay. Actually, let me take out more funding from schools. Let me make housing more inaccessible. Let me put more police out in the streets to harass and arrest and many times kill our youth. Because that violence we condone. But the violence that you guys talk about in your music, we condemn, right? And then we begin to see kind of a weird thing happen where hip hop has always been kind of like a fight against the establishment, a fight against government officials, a fight against the police. But then hip hop artists start meeting with, police officer number one, right? We have KRS-One a few days ago, who, he made the song Sounds of the Police. He's literally meeting with Eric Adams and saying that he's going to begin working with him. And we have drill rappers that met with Eric Adams saying that they were going to begin working with him. And this comes out of a deep issue, which is that a lot of times when rap is being shaped by social movements, but the social movements are not tying the issues that they're facing in their community with the root causes, then all they are looking for is how to resolve the issues without looking for deep political change. So we could go next, David. So this is also in that same, from the book, It's Bigger Than Hip Hop, in the chapter where they have a phone interview with hip hop. And hip hop says, when they ask hip hop, like, well, you're very violent and you guys are creating a lot of the problems that we see in our community, he responds, listen, the people in the ghetto have never been the problem. The people in the ghetto don't make decisions to bulldoze their homes and build freeways through their neighborhoods. The people in the ghetto don't redline their own neighborhoods. The people in the ghetto don't deny themselves loans and mortgages. The people in the ghetto don't cut funding for their children's schools. The people in the ghetto don't put more cops in their streets. The people in the ghetto don't install cameras to monitor themselves. So here we see kind of like what I was talking about, right? That literally our youth, yes, they are reporting on very violent conditions and many times rapping about violence, but this is the reality that they are children of the United States. They are children of our society. And this is the reality that our society has created for them. And unless we want that music to change and not be so violent, then we have to actually change society itself. But we cannot do that without a strong social movement that is looking at the roots of the issue. And if that social movement does not exist, then it will be incapable of influencing youth and influencing youth culture, including hip hop. So we're gonna go a little bit, we're gonna be doing an exercise right now where we are going to be creating a tree. It's going to be called the problem tree. And the idea of this problem tree is for us to do an exercise together to really look at how do we keep ourselves centered and always looking at the root of the issues that we're facing in our communities, okay? So I do hope that you guys, introduce yourselves to the people next to you during this activity. We're gonna give about 5 minutes. We're going to be handing out little leaves. And in these leaves, I want you to write, what are the issues that you are facing in your community that you see when you walk outside of your house, right? Is it domestic violence? Is it alcoholism? Is it fighting, gang violence, dirt, garbage? What do you see in your community? So you guys can have more than one. And let me hand out some pens, okay? And then those of you that are watching at home, feel free to draw a little tree in your notebook. And then in the leaves section, just put the issues that you are seeing in your community. Here you go. You should all have more than one because there are many issues under capitalism. Oh, okay. Sí, sí. Uh-huh.
Yeah, like a specific issue, yeah. And well, I'll pass them out.
Where you live, when you leave your house, what's the first thing you see that's a problem?
You have to lose. You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
Reporting live from the other side of America. Mama let me sip the 40. I was just a shorty. Damn. Then I started spitting garlic, and they said record me. Man. I feel like this shit was for me. This shit just my story. Facts. Yeah, jump out the porch, I got a porch, no take it back. I'm on the block with the killers and holding my own, of course, yeah. I see my mom and dad separate, ain't talking divorce. Said daddy was living by the fire, and he died by the torch. I'm where the AKs is, we like the baby kids. Ain't ever daddy, I listen to suckers the same way that Ray did. I'm telling Smithers and HKs, and I just was a grade A kid. Ain't on no guy, and we grew up with hitters and did everything they said. Point out the block, we spinning that. Running the spot, we getting that. Give us some work, we flipping that. I'm hitting from jet, I ain't hitting back. I need a lawyer, money for commissary, ain't nobody ain't sending that. I'm in my cell, like when I get out, I'm making a movie, no Cinemax. Whoo, yeah. Back home and I'm fresh on bail. Phone chirping, it was next to tell. Block popping, it was extra sell. Big dogs, they ain't showing remorse. I was begging just to catch a cell. Same block, we was going to war. I was praying I ain't catch a shell. Yeah, ooh. We ain't starving for 1,000 nights. Living like we trying to die tonight. Glock 40 sound like dynamite. I was fucking up my car money. Selling soap like it's China white. OG said you fucking a block up. I was mad, I was trying to fight. Nigga, we home. Mommy at work, daddy he dead. Nigga, we home. Stomach growling like an AMG. Going to bed, we home. Uzi on me, all my friends are dead. Nigga, we home. Report live from the other side of America. Reporting live from the other side. Yeah. Same corner where my brothers died. Yeah. Living like we ain't got care. Told my mama I ain't dying here. No. 40 on me, I ain't buying beer. No. Ain't have a wheel, now I'm flying Lear. Bunch of fellas on the jet with me. Make a movie like it's Con Air. Started off in the basement, now it's rooftops in LeBron Air. Still fighting over cases. I don't bail, nigga, but it's my year. Summertime, it get cold out. Heater on me like a mind clear. Closet bigger than my old house. Thinking about it, I was fine there. Came in the dirt. Dedicated, I was making it work. Medicated, I was taking them perks. Devastated when my niggas got murked. Educated, had to get I've been trying to run from these caskets. All of this pain built in me, nigga. You don't want none of this action. Go get some money and feed your fam, cause this is a fucking disaster. We ain't starving for 1,000 nights. Living like we trying to die tonight. Glock 40 sound like dynamite. I was fucking up my car money. Selling soap like it's China white. OG said you fucking a block up. I was mad, I was trying to fight. Nigga, we home. Mama at work, daddy he dead. Nigga, we lonely. Stomach growling like an AMG. Going to bed, we home. Uzi on me, all my friends are dead. Nigga, we lonely. Report live on the other side of America.
I always dreamed too of being like on like CNN and being able to express myself and speak for like the voiceless young men of America. The first step I would say, I grew up in America in a ruthless neighborhood where we're not protected by police. We grow up in ruthless environments. We grow up around murder. You see murder. You see 7 people die a week. I think you would probably carry a gun yourself. Would you?
Yeah, I probably would.
We're all good? Everybody's issue leaves are up? All right. This is the problem tree. I know. How? So what do we have here? What are the issues we're facing in our community? We have housing affordability, access to recreation, pobreza, pobreza económica, falta de educación, callan a los marginados, and dirty streets, substance abuse, drugs, expensive houses, housing rates, limited school resources, homelessness, lack of safe infrastructure, no bookstores, vacant lots, theft, robbery, people unhoused, trash, rats, people fighting, no accessibility, homelessness, poverty, abuse, addiction, PTSD, people priced out of their neighborhoods, drug addiction, overcrowded trains. That's so funny. I wrote that one and I was like, what did I write? The one I couldn't read. Migrants with nowhere to go, alcoholism, displacement, gentrification, lack of affordable housing, substance abuse, education not related to the people being educated, prostitution, here I like Gabby's. I saw it when you put it up. Thank God. But exploitation of workers, drug epidemic, too many police, yes, and too much funding for police, access to affordable healthy food options, and substance abuse. Hold on, I need my marker. All right, so this is what we're dealing with every day in our communities. This is when we get out of our houses. This is what we feel. This is what we see. We see the homelessness. We see the substance abuse. We see immigrants without a place to go. We see the limitations in school resources. We feel that, right? As teachers, if we have kids having our kids go to school. This is what we deal with day in and day out inside capitalist America. This is what we live every day. Now, what creates this? So here we have like the leaves of the tree, right? But the leaves are supported by the trunk. We kind of covered the trunk here, but I'm going to move some of these up. But there is a trunk. And look, there's a little squirrel house too. I'm practicing on my art. All right. So we see the trunk here, right? And what is upholding all these social problems? What's holding it up? What is supporting it? We see the roots. The roots are supported by the trunk. What is the support system here that holds these social problems up? What is it? The government, yes. And what type of government? Is it all types of government? What type of government do we live in here? Okay, so is capitalism what supports it or what creates it? Yeah, so we have capitalism here in the roots. And what does capitalism create? It creates racism. What else? Austerity. That would be an issue. Austerity is an issue. Neoliberalism. Sexism. Police. Misery or issues. What else? Laws, right? We have laws. Patriarchy. Wars. Class division. Trump. We could put as a root cause as well. Patriarchy, we're missing one down here. Capitalism, patriarchy. Imperialism is just a prolonged, like it's part of capitalism. Capitalism will always have imperialism. But yes, we could write that. What else? Mass incarceration is the trunk or support system. What creates mass incarceration? What ideology? Incarceration, okay. White supremacy. Wow, that marker. White. This is the tree. This is the problem tree. This is what we see every day in our communities. This is what we live. We live in a society that was created from the ideologies of capitalism, patriarchy, white supremacy. It creates its support structures through the military, through sexism, through neoliberalism, through mass incarceration, through politicians like Trump. And then the result of that is what we see in our everyday lives, right? Is what we see in this is what creates the expensive housing. This is what creates all the people that you see and complain about that look like zombies in the street because of substance abuse. This is what creates not having any worker protection and our family members not being able to find a job where they are respected and paid well, right? This is what creates our youth not having after-school programs, not having a place to play, not having any type of recreation center, right? So when we think about the movements that we have to create, they have to be based on focusing on the entire tree and ensuring that we know that each leaf of the tree is connected to its roots. Why? Because what happens when Eric Adams goes to a community and says, there's too much substance abuse here? All you guys talk about is drugs and money and getting drunk. And you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna have a block party to get rid of substance abuse and to promote that people are healthy. So this substance abuse for now, for this week, right? Because of this block party where a lot of people get drunk, and now we're having a block party to avoid people getting drunk, right? This is what Eric Adams thinking. Substance abuse is gonna go away. Look, poof. You know what? You don't have migrants don't have a place to go. That's okay. We have jails we could empty out, and we could find them a place to go. Poof, got rid of that issue. That issue's gone, right? Oh, expensive housing. Oh, it's okay. I'm gonna build one building for you guys. Don't worry. The rent will be, $2,000 for a studio, but that's so affordable in terms of market rate. We're getting rid of this issue, right? But all of these solutions that are being offered never take this into account. And because our youth are not being educated about this through the social movements that are occurring in the streets, then they will only focus on temporary solutions to this. And they will not see through the lies, and they will not be able to see that the solutions to these issues can only happen when the roots of the tree are cut off. Because if these roots are not cut off, these leaves will grow back, right? You could provide a block party to end substance abuse, right? But if you're not talking about how capitalism creates substance abuse and how we should end capitalism, white supremacy, and patriarchy, then that substance abuse is going to come back to the community. You could build a building and say, oh, this is affordable housing. Look at what I did, right? But if you're not talking about how housing can never be affordable under capitalism, then we're never destroying the system that is going to continue to create affordable housing. And until we bring this knowledge and this context and framework of looking at society to our youth, then our youth will be easily fooled by people like Eric Adams and by politicians. And that's why today we see a lot of hip-hop artists, a lot of young hip-hop artists that are meeting with the ops. They're literally meeting with police and politicians, thinking that the same police and politicians that uphold this system, thinking that they're going to offer them the solutions because they don't have this political understanding. So what is can you put this back? Sorry. Thank you. So what is our role as a social movement then? Because we started saying that hip-hop is a mirror of what is happening in our community and the social problems happening in our community. So our responsibility then becomes to create a social movement that will inspire and educate youth, not to only look at the issues that are happening in our community, but to cut the whole tree off from the roots. I think I could go this way. So let's go back to my slides here. Oh, that was the problem tree. So we have here Chuck D saying in 2014, hip hop does not need a president. It needs socialism. And what hip hop needs in order to continue to be the voice of the people is a socialist movement, a strong socialist movement that will influence culture at every turn. So one great example of this, one of the greatest, in my opinion, rappers who kind of married politics and art and hip hop was Tupac Shakur. And the reason why he was able to do this was because his life was enmeshed. His mother was a Black Panther member. His life was enmeshed in political organizing and community organizing. And this is a small clip. It's like the best one I found that was within 2 to 3 minutes. But I really recommend that you all go on Hulu and you watch the series Dear Mama and really see the impact and the beauty and the possibility that could come out of a social movement as strong as the Black Panther Party, and how that social movement shaped and can shape art and hip hop and rap. So let me play, or you want to press play? I don't want to mess it up. I don't like that.
Tupac was recording the second album, strictly for my niggas, when the LA riots happened. When the LA riots broke out, Tupac left the studio to go down and be part of the scene.
Rodney King, we see that every single motherfucking day. All them kind of injustices that make you crazy and make you different. You know what I'm saying? If you walk different, you talk different.
The riots led him to his next evolution as a leader.
At that time, he had already started to dig into gangster, Bloods and Crip culture.
The gangs in LA represented the ability to organize the streets, just like his mother did with the Black Panthers.
Tupac realized that he was recognizable to members from all over LA's gang community. And he realized that he had a responsibility to unite people. He would play an active role in bringing the Crips and Bloods together for discussions that ultimately led to a significant reduction in the hostility.
Thug life came out of that time period.
Thug life for Pac, he said it stood for the hate you give little infants, F everyone.
Tupac meant if you don't feed your youth with love, positivity, and a chance at making it, they become angry. And so Thug Life was an extension of the Black Panther 10-point platform as a code of how people were supposed to behave.
I organized the OGs in the East Coast and the West Coast and the penitentiaries to come up with a set of ethics for criminals. All that kidnapping and shooting drive-bys out the car, we're against that. And people who perpetrate that, they have to deal with the consequences when they go to jail.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, so it doesn't really do it that much justice. You guys should really, really look at that docuseries. But the stronger of a movement that we create to tackle the root causes of oppression, the more that hip hop will begin to reflect that same message. So we see hip hop being the voice of the oppressed and kind of reflecting social movements, not only in the United States, but throughout the entire world. So here in Chile, we see the Antifa dance that really supported I think they were having a national strike at that time in Chile as well. Then in Cali, Colombia, for those of you that don't know, in 2021, we had a national strike in Cali, Colombia, where many youth, the police just opened fire on youth that were protesting, and many youth were killed. And we have here like a song called ACAB, which doesn't actually mean much in Spanish, right? But it's just an acronym that has become like this big message for political movements across the world. We don't have to say this because it's not a video, but sorry. And then here we have Daños Colaterales, which also happened in Cali, Colombia. So this music video is actually created about, it's kind of like a narrative about a young graffiti artist in Cali that was assassinated in the national strike. And his friends, who are hip hop artists, created this this music video in ode to him. So we could watch a part of that, David.
Cuando la policía y el ejército de un país no defiende a su ciudadanía, sino que la ataca, no podemos estar hablando ni de una policía legítima ni de un ejército legítimo. Esto no puede ser el tratamiento y Colombia no puede acostumbrarse a que esto se queda en rigurosas investigaciones que terminan siendo un saludo a la bandera. Si en Colombia, usted que me ve y me escucha, no entiende que respetar una vida es respetar la suya, Colombia no tiene futuro.
Hay que dolor en mi nación, no respetan la vida de los seres, ni mujeres, ni recursos, ni mi genes, ese cartel y lo bonito son poderes, la corrupción y el terror, juntos que abarcan los poderes, nos dirigen más bien ellos nos digieren, no sé qué quieren si mi pueblo se muere, claro, por eso seguimos aquí, con el templo de recién nací, hay que tener tu neurona para creer que corona que es lo que de prima pa.
So here we saw like a lot of graffiti in Cali. Actually, after the national strike, they actually painted a whole almost like expressway filled with resistance like graffiti. And the right wing actually went one night and tried to paint it all white, and they literally went back the next day and painted it again. So we also see how not just through music, but through its culture itself has really impacted and represented the voice of oppressed people throughout the world. And we could go next. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I overrepresented. You could play this one. I overrepresented Colombia. I just realized. I'm Colombian.
El caos se desató. Nos vinieron a matar. Ya no eran solo gases que venían del ESMAD. Fueron balas asesinas que empezaron a caer. Nos quieren reprimir, pero no van a poder.
Nos están matando, nos están acribillando. Colombia pide auxilio mientras Cali desangrando. Nos están matando, nos están acribillando. Colombia pide auxilio mientras Cali desangrando.
Cali resiste, pueblo que no pierde la fe. Cali resiste, mi gente no va a retroceder. Cali resiste, mis derechos hago valer. Cali resiste, si lo es firme representa. Cali resiste, pueblo que no pierde la fe. Cali resiste, mi gente no va a retroceder. Cali resiste, mis derechos hago valer. Colombia firme, si lo es firme representa. La noche que viví.
Oh, there we go. Okay. And then this one is from Buenaventura, another part of Colombia. Yeah, you guys could see that later. Sorry. All right, and then we can end with this one. This is Not America by Residente, who is Puerto Rican. And he goes through actually a lot of... So this is kind of like a response to... Who was it that did This Is America? Yeah, so this is a response saying like this is not America, like that was like this is America, because there's also like the dichotomy of the word like America that's used only to like talk about the United States of America when people in Latin America are also part of America. So he's saying like that's not America, and then he's talking about the social movements that are happening in throughout the entire Latin America. So, say that. Victor Jara, who was a political like a musician. He was actually killed in a stadium because of his political activity. You could play it. Yeah, so that that video it shows a lot. It goes through different social movements throughout the entire Latin America, from Brazil, from Chile, El Salvador, Colombia. So we really see like how hip hop is used, right? To magnify, and not only magnify, but inspire many people to become part of the movement. And even a lot of the things that he shows there, right? Like I didn't know, so much about like the movement in El Salvador. So when you look at it and you start like researching it, right? But the reason he's able to do that is because of like the political formation that he had, right? As an artist. And that's why it's really, really important that if we want hip hop to continue to be the soul of liberation and the spirit of liberation, we need to create a movement that is rooted in actually diminishing, I mean, not destroying completely the roots of the problem tree, right? So destroying capitalism, destroying white supremacy and patriarchy, and really teaching our youth about its roots and not focusing only on the issues, because the issues will always be there, and our youth will come outside of their houses and see the issues every single day, and that's what they will rap about, because that's what they are, a mirror of what's happening in their community. But unless they have that political context of how these issues are connected to a political system that has literally been created to disseminate and obliterate our people, and how it needs to be stopped, then they will not be able to continue to rap about those things. And we need to create a social movement that is not based on issues, right? And is not based on, like only like making police nicer and training them well and adding this and adding that, even though those things are good, right? But connecting those reforms and those issues to actually building a movement for socialism, and a movement that will completely obliterate capitalism. Because how do you fight capitalism? With socialism. Okay. So I wanted to leave you guys with this, because in terms of building a future for hip hop, right, we really have to fight for it, and we have to create this social movement that is really going to change the culture and change the reality of our people and their understanding of reality, in order for them to create a hip hop that is really rooted in liberation. So Asada Shakur, who is right now exiled in Cuba, a Black Panther member, she said, it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. So I want to just leave you guys with that, and really leave you, thinking about how we're going to build this movement, right, for socialism, and for bringing hip hop back to its roots, to being the soul of revolution and the soul of liberation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. If you all will open it up for questions and comments. We are live streaming, so I ask that you wait for the mic before you speak, and I will be here to pass it around to you all. Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like nobody was saying. No, it was a very good presentation. I would just say, it's the 50th anniversary of hip hop culture. And I myself am somebody that came into the movement through hip hop, wanting to be an artist, working with like the Rebel Diaz Art Collective out in the Bronx, and doing programs out in when Rikers Island used to exist, performing for incarcerated youth and wanting to get them moving forward through hip hop culture. I would just say when we think about this art form that came from nothing, because they always say, they didn't create nothing new. They recreated everything, you know what I mean? From James Brown and Sly and the Family Stone to, political movements, it's like a remix of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and the Black Panthers, and it was always brought into the new generations. So I would say it's just amazing how this art form that took this language, that we know as English, this Germanic language, made it do things that we thought couldn't be done before. Because as Spanish or Latin-based languages, it's love languages. And, when you hear poetry and all this other stuff, it's built into the language. Unlike English. English is very still, it's very boring. But hip-hop, made it amazing to want to hear metaphors and words being rhythmically put into a beat. So, I just wanted to add that into the conversation. And we just have to understand how we could politicize people, artists coming up to know, so, it's not just them looking at a problem like police brutality or racism, but understanding like the root cause, because sometimes what happens is, yeah, of course, they get co-opted by
Right.
politicians,
Right.
and they're not looking at the bigger scope and the bigger picture. I mean, it's awesome when we have like commercial artists, like what's his name, Little Baby, or
Yeah, that was great.
I mean, I know him as a commercial, or like YG, you know, like they're the commercial artists, you know, that, you know, they rap about stuff like drugs and all violence and all that other stuff because it's a reality, you know?
Right.
But then it's awesome when they get awoken into the social movement. But the part that's missing is like how we get to influence them more, you know?
Yeah.
Because there are artists out there too that I know, like My Song, The General, you know, out in the Bronx that does rallies and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I have a few things to say. I mean, I thank you for your presentation, Kathy. I think I recently took a class with Vijay Prashad, he's a revolutionary writer, and he talks about how like art alone will not change the world, but art changes people. And it has this immense capacity to shape people's thinking. And like as revolutionaries, we always talk about winning the hearts and mind of people, and it is a tool, right? I think the description of culture as a weapon, culture also being something, a part of that trunk that holds up, right? That's that link between what's at the root and what is grown from that. So yeah, I think it's important to end on this note of like seeing it as our duty to use this weapon to advance our movements for liberation, because the art alone isn't gonna do it. And if we don't hold ourselves to this duty, we see other forces, other political forces coming in and using this tool to their advantage. Like Eric Adams, you know, it's very deliberate, right? That he is choosing to meet with and influence the artists that he knows are influencing the youth, and making sure that they don't actually know about the revolutionary artists that preceded, right? Or to like quell that energy that we saw in 2020. And these artists, you know, a lot of them singing about these things, they're not revolutionaries, but we can take what they've put in the public eye in a way that we don't have that reach and use that to talk to our people, right? Like the images that they see, like a lot of people seeing images of the Black Panther in films and in music videos before they read it in a book sometimes, right? And it's on us to talk about what those, like who these people really were and what they actually represented, because the next step beyond just talking about the issues is talking about what we do when we can uproot this system. What do we build in its place? What do we plant in its place, right? And so making sure that our people have that political unity and using culture as a way to build those connections. So thank you for this amazing presentation. I love it so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again for the presentation. So I think you had a really good perspective on like just the internationalism of hip hop, and how wide, like Gabby was saying, like how really the array and really the distance that hip hop can reach, right? It can it crosses boundaries, it crosses like cultures even, and it sort of becomes like a language. And thank you for saying that, like that it is a language and it has to be shaped and molded, because we can reach so much more people. Could you speak a little bit more? I know that you were mentioning it, like on the internationalism, and like, do you feel like it was like there's a difference between like here and other places?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and then I'll come back.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I wouldn't say I'm the most knowledgeable regarding hip hop, so I'm talking with a lot of assumptions. But I'm curious what you think about. One assumption I have is that hip hop as like a sector has become much more formalized and professionalized somewhat, and I'm curious about what you think, how that influences its potential to be radical. Because a thought I have is that with the kind of formalization maybe of the sector, there's also a certain, that might impact its potential to be radical in a certain way. I'm thinking of previously some of the artists were even aligned with gangs and or involved in in certain sectors. That is kind of also a material position against the state. Whereas now I think there might be through this formalization much more that it's like making money as an individual. And I'm just curious about kind of how if you have some thoughts about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh wait, I have a mic. Wow. Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, to your point about hip hop and internationalism, I think I mean, you just wanted me to expand a little bit more about that. I think that hip hop has become like the language of oppressed, but it's also like a way for us to learn about other people's struggles, right? Like we could look, if we like Calle 13, we could look at his music and learn about the issues that are happening in Chile, in Colombia, in ways that are not marketed on like mainstream capitalist media, right? Like I could learn about about this graffiti artist that was killed during a national strike through this song, and I never knew about that before listening to this song, right? And like that's like one of the things that I like loved about Immortal Technique when I was growing up, that he talked a lot about the issues of Latin America, right? So we begin to almost report on other like issues that are happening across the world, and that builds international worker solidarity that is crucial to ending imperialism across the world. Like Gabby said, hip hop is a tool that we could also use, right? A tool of communication, because maybe you don't want to watch Democracy Now!, right, to get your news, especially if you're like 18, 19 years old. Amy Goodman may not be, no shade to Amy Good, but she may not do it for you. You know what I mean? But then, Residente may do it for you because he's interactive, he got the swag, you know what I mean? So it's really a way of reporting what's happening in our communities and building international solidarity. In terms of your question, I think nobody could deny that the influx and the co-optation, the contracts that capitalist companies are giving hip-hop artists is definitely going to dilute the message and try to pull it further away from like the message of revolution, of what's happening in our communities, of changing the system, of being, against the system that creates our reality. But that's the struggle, right? That's the struggle under capitalism. In every aspect of your life, or in any aspect, you're kind of struggling with like, okay, now we're getting these contracts for these liquor companies, so we should only rap about like alcohol and this, as opposed to what's happening in our community. But then we need to combat that, right? And that's where it becomes our duty to step up and be like, you can't ignore us. Right? You can't ignore our movement. You can't ignore the knowledge that we're throwing at you. You can't ignore these protests. Like Lil Baby, I mean, honestly, I think he's a good rapper. I don't know. I like him. But yeah, even his like non-political songs, I really like them. They can be about fighting and whatever, drugs, money. They're good. But I listen to them on my way to work, but then he could not before teaching youth, but my 9 to 5. But he could not ignore the protests that were happening in 2020. It was in his face. Like literally, police precincts were being blown up. And he was like, I have to make a song about this. So then it becomes our duty for them to not be able to ignore, right? And also there is this like thing of like, because a lot of youth, yes, they are talking about very violent things or whatever, but and that's the one where they kind of like draw the line, right? Like at Eric Adams and politicians, they'll be like, we like hip hop when you're talking about, like certain things. But when you're talking about like violence and drugs and gangs, then we don't like it anymore. And then it's like, yeah, because they're talking about reality, like what's really happening in their communities. And if you don't like it, change society. It's not their fault. They're just mirrors of what's happening. You know what I mean? And we still see that even though people are giving them so much shade for that, especially drill rappers right now, they're still like, no, we're gonna rap about what we see and what we experience and what we live, even though they're under attack. And there used to be this documentary, I watched it, I don't even, more than 10 years ago. I was in high school. It was called like Hip Hop Police or something. But like, but hip hop artists are heavily policed, are heavily incarcerated, you know what I mean? Are heavily like, targeted by police. And a lot of the hip hop rappers that are rapping about their reality are very much targeted, but they still try to stay true, right? To their experiences, to their life, and to their to what they see, right? And so we still do see that like level. We still do see a certain level of integrity, despite the fact that there are corporations that are throwing contracts at them, like to talk about like all of these like clothing and jewelry and alcohol and drugs and all of that. Despite that, we still see a level of maintaining integrity there. And then also, like I said, we should continue to just build a stronger movement that they can't ignore.
Hey, thanks, Kathy, for this presentation. I learned a lot. All of that, the music recommendations, Colombian rap. I'm gonna go home and listen to that. But I was just thinking, sitting here, because I feel like a lot of people in this crowd are creative. I like to be creative. I like art. I like art. I like music. And this quote that keeps popping up in my head is by a writer called Tony Cade Bambara. It's the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. So like every time I think about that quote, I'm just like, why make art for decoration? Like I want to make art for the revolution. I want to make art for the movement. And I think like if you're, a creative person, you have a duty really to be making for the movement, because all art is political. Like all culture is political. All art comes from somewhere. When you're talking about the leaves, everything has its roots, right? So does art. So I'm thinking like if you don't make art for the movement, or if you're not making art that makes the poor and working oppressed people of the world feel like they have power in this situation, then you're actually making art that makes people feel passive, that makes people feel like they're somebody else has the power, or that art is just for decoration and like none of this matters. So I just want to add that to the conversation. And I think we can all be artists in some way, even if we don't think we have talents, and even if we don't know how to write songs or rap, that we can create culture, whether it's our neighborhood culture, how we treat people around us, how we identify with each other, how we build relationships. That's culture too. Thank you.
Thank you, Caro.
The gangs were mentioned a couple times. I just want to recommend a documentary. It's called Bastards of the Party, and it's about how COINTELPRO destroyed the Black Panthers, and in its place, like people try to organize, and I forgot it was the Bloods of the Crips, were an attempt for people in the community to reorganize themselves. But a lot of their leaders were gone, jailed, and stuff like that. And then, as if COINTELPRO wasn't bad enough, then they started importing drugs, which was brought in by the CIA. Right. So it has a lot of connections. So it's a really good documentary to watch. Bastard of the Party.
Nice. Thank you.
Can you send us a list of those
songs?
Those songs.
All the Colombian artists. Anyone else? All right. Well, with that, thank you all so much for coming. Like Gabby said, or Cam said, actually, we have two more events. We still have a walking tour that's happening August 5th, and we still have our 50th anniversary hip hop celebration that's actually happening in the Bronx, in the hometown of hip hop, in El Maestro, and it's happening on August 11th. 12th, August 12th. So I hope to see you guys there. As always, we will be taking donations if you have, just to keep the space open, keep the lights running. We also have a I can't pronounce it, table where you can find, different books to, better educate yourselves, your community, the people around you. And if you want to sign up for, if you do want to commit your life to building a socialist movement, a strong socialist movement across the United States, then come learn more about the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the PSL, and sign your name here. You'll start getting updates of different events that we're having and different ways that you could volunteer and commit your life to revolution. So thank you guys so much for coming and all your support.